Julie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
Now, it's been a pretty big few years for you and a lot's happened. Do you want to just give us a little bit of background to the business that you started and now since pretty recently exited? Do you want to just give us a bit of an overview of how everything's progressed over the years?
Yeah. I've aged significantly. There's a lot that's gone on. So I started Flora and Fauna, which was the first business. So I'd worked in retail for a really long time. And in 2014, started Flora and Fauna. And I'm sure, like many people who start a business, you kind of want it to go somewhere, but you never really know, is it going to go anywhere? And, you know, what's going to happen? And it grew and grew and grew and grew. And for the first 2 years, actually, I was still working, had a proper job. And
okay.
Yeah. So I was still working for Woolies, actually, in a proper job, and then doing this in the evenings. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, this has got to be, I've got to make a call.
Yeah.
I can't, this is not evening work anymore. So in end of 2016, went full time into F&F and really grew it from there. And I think when you can put yourself into it wholeheartedly and you just throw yourself into it and be free of any boundaries, then you can put yourself into it. Good.
And how much of an advantage was it that you had a couple of years to sort of, like you say, working at night, building the business? Because then, like when you say, you can go into it full time, you've got no boundaries and you can sort of be free to pursue it. But in many cases, when people start a business, it's an all or nothing thing, right? So did that help, having had those 2 years to,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because I think it just took the pressure off.
Yeah.
And also what was great for us is we live out in the sticks. So our house actually had, just coincidentally, had a little mini warehouse. We called it the shed. So we started it in there. So we weren't paying anyone any rent. So we didn't have those immediate overheads where we're really from day one going, we've got to win. We didn't have that pressure. And we didn't have the pressure of going, geez, this has got to feed me. It really took that pressure off us, which I think helped enormously. And meant that we could make some really good decisions early on. And we weren't constrained by having to make decisions which were solely based on revenue. As it happens, the decisions we made were decisions that drove revenue anyway, but it absolutely helped. And for the next 2 years, actually, when we did go into it full time, we weren't paying ourselves a salary because we very much focused on putting every single cent that we got back into the business for growth. Yeah. And that was a key part of our scaling.
And that lets you build the right way, right? Because you're not thinking in that short-term way, like you say, if you're not drawing money from the business or need to, and many people do need to, right? That's the fact of life in many cases. But the fact that you had those 2 years to build it progressively, and then you can it lets you grow the right way. You can make long-term decisions.
Yeah, exactly. It was all about, it was the right decisions for scale. It really did take the pressure off us because we're not going, geez, this has got to pay the mortgage, because in year one it most definitely would have not.
Right.
In fact, year one,
no, you're right.
Year one and year
7 years ago. Oh, sorry, Julie. You go.
Yeah, year one and year two, it wouldn't have paid the mortgage.
No. Well, that's the case with most businesses, right? And so if you fast forward, that was 7 years ago you started the business. If you fast forward to when did you sell? Was it last year?
It was actually, it's May 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. So May 2021 is when we signed the agreement that was pretty hard to get out of, and July 1st of July was when we handed over the keys, so to speak. So yeah, almost 2 years ago now.
Right. Okay. And so this was quite a significant sum of money in terms of the exit. It was 30 million. Is that right? That's
there
the figure I read. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so since then you've started another business. Is that right?
Yeah. So what I did for my sins is decide that I can't do nothing. So I actually stayed with with the business for a few months. So I stayed until a year ago, Feb 2022. And you know, I think many founders struggle to still work in the business once they've sold it. So I decided that was not for me.
Yeah. I think often you find the shorter the time frame for once you exit, because it's a totally different ball game once you're no longer in control of
Exactly.
the business you've always had control over. And it's just the sooner you can move away, it makes more sense.
Exactly. And I didn't have an earn out, so I was really sticking around for the team. And then I was like, no, I can't do it anymore. I need to think about me here. So Feb 22 is when I went, and then at the same time, Snuggle Hunny, which is the business that I now own and run, was up for sale. And I know the founders of Snuggle Hunny, and we'd actually stocked it at Flora and Fauna as well. So I knew the potential for Snuggle Hunny. So we had a look at the business with Arca's partners, and we bought it together. So that was so that's what we did. Yeah, a year ago now. So for the last year, I've been running this business. But this is a business where the founders wanted to they actively wanted to exit. And I was most definitely not ready to hang up my hat yet. So wanted to get in the business.
So it's perfect.
Oh, it's perfect. It's great. It's a business that's already running. It's got legs, and there's a great runway ahead of it. And good to be part of that. So it's been it's been really interesting actually to go into a business and run a business that you've not founded, and you're learning. I've spent a year really trying to understand the business and learning it and understanding the customer. It's so important that you do that. I think particularly when you buy a business, it's so important that you just listen and learn for a bit.
Yeah. And how different has it been when you first start the business? And Flora and Fauna, would that be your first business that you'd run?
Yes.
So how does that change now that you've got an exit under your belt? And that means a lot of things, not just in terms of money and capital you've got for this one. It means presumably in terms of even just the experience and lessons that you've learned, and also confidence, because like you said at the start, when you start a business, you don't know how it's going to go. You've got aspirations and dreams of how it would go, but coming out the other side and having successfully exited, it must have a big impact on the way you approach the next business.
100%. I mean, we always at F&F, we always knew that we wanted to exit at some point.
Yep.
But of course we hadn't exited, and so we didn't know what that experience was going to be like. Having that experience has been so important to us in terms of just understanding what investors are looking for.
Yeah.
And actually understanding who the next owner could be. Mm-hmm. So, and therefore you're building a business that is very attractive to that. So that it's absolutely key for us. And just being in those investor meetings and understanding what makes them tick, and I think what's actually probably, I'm not massively emotional anyway, which I guess is pretty good, but
it's handy in business.
It's handy in business. Yeah. Right. But I think as a founder of a business, you know, it literally is your baby. And I think one of the things for me is whatever you think it's worth to you is slightly irrelevant. It's whatever the market will pay. And I think a lot of founders struggle with that. And lots of people talk to me, and the wording they use is "I feel," and it's it's quite emotional wording, and so I think for me, you've got to take the emotion out of it when you look at selling a business. And I think that, and I've said that to a few people who've approached me since I exited, and then suddenly I'm the expert at exiting, right? And I'm like, no, we did it once.
But that's valuable experience, right? That a lot of people don't have. And if you're going through it for the first time, someone who has been through that has a mountain of experience by comparison.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you presumably, from what I've read, you've gone down that process of, initially I think it was to look at raising capital to go to the next level, and it sort of took a different path along the way. That's the case, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you want to just take us through that sort of process? Because I think people find that really interesting because everyone thinks about the exit, but there's different parts, right? Like you say, there's raising money to go to one level, and that's a different type of investor, a whole different type of process to a straight exit.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'd got to the point where we'd grown significantly. We were a $20 million run rate business. We knew what we needed to do next, which was international, lots of private label, all cash intensive stuff. And when you're running a retailer and primarily selling other people's stuff, your margins are tight. So we knew we needed cash and we needed investment to do the next thing. And so initially we worked with Deloitte. They were our advisors, and we just went, okay, we need to go and find investment. So we only talked to PE, and we had a few offers that we were considering. And at the 11th hour, effectively the parent company of our competitor got wind that we were looking for an investment and reached out to us and said, well, how about we have a conversation? And I think, I was kind of there going, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
not
right.
sure about this.
What's the intentions behind this meeting?
Exactly. And I was nervy throughout the entire thing until we signed the.
Oh, really? Yeah.
100%. Because we are revealing so much of ourselves to them, and we were a pain in the bum to them. So the reason they wanted us is because we were painful, in a good way. And throughout the process, I was very considered, and when we shared data, it was all via a black box, so that we can protect ourselves as much as we could, but what came from that was when we had a conversation with them, because we hadn't talked to trade at all because we didn't want to go down that route. And then when we had a conversation, I think what we learned along the process is you've kind of got to be open to different options, and you've got to be able to flex your mind a little bit and think, okay, is that better than that?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we just thought a good move for us was to go down this route.
And
that's the right decision.
And that's a perfect result. I mean, that's generational wealth, life-changing money, and you can go on to the next thing as well. And the business goes to people who are going to take it to the next level, and can do that and have the money to do that. And so he gets to see that through as well. So it's a pretty good win-win. But it must have been very unnerving as you're going through that process, like you say, revealing information to them, because it wouldn't be the first time where a big competitor has come along and said, oh, we want to look at buying you, and they haven't necessarily had the best of intentions along the way from the start. So you would be right to be a little dubious in that process, I would think.
Oh, 100%. I was very reluctant to give too much away, just for self-preservation.
And what are you doing differently this time as you start this new venture, I guess, and taking it along that path? You've been through that process. What are the biggest things you've noticed that have changed or that are different from the way you're approaching this compared to the first time?
Compared to the first time? Oh, so in the first time, we've kind of missed out those really hard yards first years. Where you're just trying to get traction. So, we're in the great position of having 1,000 active stockists. So we don't have to build that. So the brand is built in a way. Certainly the basics of the brand are built. So that is great. So we can really focus our effort on doing the next thing. I call it, we're treating this year as almost the foundations for growth. So we've just refreshed our branding because it hadn't been looked at in sort of 6 years, and putting in a new website because the one we've got doesn't allow us to trade internationally. And so there's a few things that we did at F&F, and things that we did well and mistakes we made. And it's like, okay, well, we know not to do that again. So we're cutting out some of the mistakes we made earlier, and also seeing some of the things we've done before and gone, well, that worked well, let's give it a go again. But also, I think what's really important is we've gone into it going, we don't have all the answers here, because they're a different customer, it's a different market, it's a different business. So there's something about you've just got to learn it. I think it's and you see this a lot, right? With particularly CEOs come into business and go, yep, do this, and don't spend enough time actually understanding the business they're in. And this is where things fall over. So we've definitely done that, but at the same time, really just trying to get those foundations in place so we can take it to the next level. And yeah, cutting out probably some of the things we've done earlier, which didn't necessarily go well.
So it fast tracks your growth, right? Because you've done all the hard yard there. You don't have to repeat some of those mistakes that you've made. You can avoid them. There'll be other ones that you make along the way, no doubt, because like you say, it is a different business, different types of clients, but you learn as you go. But the best thing you can do is have that open mind and not sort of come in with that approach of, oh, this is how we do it. Because that's where you're going to start to make mistakes. And there's parts you can do that with, but then there's other parts, like you say, you just got to learn that specific type of business and go from there. But and how are you finding it? Do you still find you've got that same passion? Is it the same sort of passion for the business when you've bought it versus when you've started it?
I think it's always going to be a different kind of passion, because if something that you've started in your shed where you've packed that first order and you know, there's a whole lot of memories there, and it is just if you cut me open, I'd bleed Flora and Fauna green. That's you know, it's I think it's also when you start a business, a lot of the purpose and the values of that of the founders, and that's very much the same with Flora and Fauna. Purpose and values of Flora and Fauna are me. It's me on a plate. So you are intrinsically linked to that business. Now, it's similar with Snuggle Hunny, but it is different because you haven't had those hard yard years. You haven't had those memory years. So you get a different kind. So I'm really passionate about it, and you get I have a very strong work ethic, thanks to my mum and dad. So I'm someone who just throws themselves into it, and absolutely, that's still the case. So,
And in terms of because you already knew of the business, does that make a difference? Because you knew the founders through your dealings with them before, and did your values sort of align and that type of thing? Is that why it linked, or was it just the product, or how did you come to look at this particular business as the one you wanted to go into?
I was quite passionate. I was actually looking at starting. So if I hadn't have bought it, I was actually looking at starting something in baby anyway.
Right. Okay.
So I was like going, okay, well, this is interesting. And then honestly, the financials are great. So that was the financials. That was the easy part. It was kind of easy. You just go, these financials are great. You can kind of see the runway ahead. And I could also see how well it sold at Flora and Fauna. And that's what made me go, okay, this is a really interesting business. And it had such great base sort of fundamentals, and I could envisage where we could possibly take this. And that was really the key behind it. But I think you've got to have some passion for that, for the sector, the industry. And there's a lot that I wanted to build in, which I am building in, around purpose and sustainability. And that's like, we've just gone fully certified organic. So there's some cool stuff that we're doing as well.
Perfect. Now, as a founder, were you always going to be in business from when you were younger, or is that something that just evolved over time?
I think I always had it in me because I've always been, I suppose, quite entrepreneurial in my thinking. Even going way back when to school, when I sort of come up with crazy money-making ideas of selling. What was I doing? I think it was something like selling Easter eggs to kids at school for like double the price or something. You know, it's like because
sounds like a smart idea.
Exactly. You're in a captive market, right? They can't go out, so they kind of want chocolate. So
there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So I've always been quite entrepreneurial, but I think in my, I graduated from uni in 98. In 98, very few people went on to go and be entrepreneurs. And certainly at our uni, you had the folks who came around and you went, do you want to be an accountant, a lawyer, or a management consultant? And those were the kind of the areas you went down. And that you're kind of almost funneled in that direction. which is very different to now. It's massively different now.
Yeah.
But that's where it was at the time. So, and I was always just slightly frustrated because I was always wanting. And one of my old bosses actually said once, Julie operates best when she's left to her own and just let her get on with it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
what area did you go into when you were
well,
into those at the start?
I went and became an accountant for a whole 7 months.
Yeah.
And I was doing it, and I really enjoyed it from a collegiate perspective because you've got 100 other people doing the same thing. It's great fun, but it was not for me. And I quickly realized, I just went, geez, I'm just not enjoying this. So I left. I left with nothing to go to, and I had never done the sort of the traveling and the year out and all that sort of stuff. So I took myself off to India for a few months, which is where my grandma's from, and just thought, let's just go and figure things out for a bit, and then came back and joined up for a retail graduate scheme. I just went, I just love retail, and so I worked in retail during uni holidays and stuff. So I'm just like, let's just go and do retail. And it's funny because at my uni, the retailers didn't even bother to come and do sort of see if anyone wanted to do it. They just assumed people wouldn't. And that's how and then from there on, then I was just in retail and had awesome jobs, sort of with probably one of my favorites was Virgin Retail. I worked there in the year 2000 when record stores were still a thing.
Okay, yes, I remember this.
Yeah, and it was just really great fun. It was really great fun. So yeah, some very, very cool jobs over the years.
And do you think those sorts of roles, and I look at like my kids who sort of have had different jobs as they've got into their teens and early 20s and that sort of stuff, or they've gone to uni and that sort of thing, and the experience they get in retail, do you find that you get a lot out of, especially in those early days in retail, like you say, working in a different place, depending on what the roles are, of course, but do you find that that's such a good grounding and foundation for real life, learning about people, sales, all those sorts of things?
Massively. When first job I did, my dad said to me, he goes, right, you're 15, you kind of need to go and get a Saturday job.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I got one at the local bakery, and it's great because you got there and I loved it. You got there in the morning, you put all the cakes and the stuff out, and you're talking to customers, you're talking to people, which when you're a teenager and you're a little bit awkward, actually really good to go and talk to proper people. They were the days when we didn't have tills that added up for us. So we had to memorize the price of everything in the shop.
Yeah.
And I can still remember those prices now. And you had to add it up in your head. So actually all the kids at the bakery were super smart because you had to be really good at maths.
Yeah.
So really good life skills. And also I think just grounds you too, because you just, more than anything, and I really want this for my kids, more than anything, you realize that money doesn't grow on trees. And if you want something, you've got to go and earn it.
Yeah.
And I think my appetite and my drive definitely comes from some of that. Whereas I look at some of my mates at uni who maybe didn't have those jobs, and they're driven in a different way. So I think it's key to.
Yeah, I think it's a massively important part of a kid's learning experience, and I don't think they necessarily appreciate it until they come out the other side of it sometimes, or as they get to see their development. I see to my own kids from when they were sort of like exactly that. Some of them were more awkward as sort of teenagers or didn't really like talking to people, and give them a couple of years in a retail job and no problem at all. Like they talk to people, they can stand up for themselves, or they can look after people, they can have all sorts of conversations, and it's a great life skill, and just and in the simplest way, it's a great process.
So good. My nephew Elliot, he lives in Melbourne actually, and he worked at Aldi, and he's an awesome talker. He's just a chatter. Anyway, he worked at Aldi on the till, and he was at uni studying, I don't know, international politics or something. And anyway, some guy who ran sales for one of the shipping companies always came past his till, and one day just offered him a job.
Oh.
Yeah, and now he works there. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, so just because he just went, you're just brilliant with customers. Come and work for us.
Yeah, right. What a great story.
Yeah,
that's so good. But yeah, it's perfect stuff. In terms of those sort of skills that you learn along the way, what was the biggest strength that you had as you sort of started business and sort of got you through that sort of journey?
Being relentless.
Relentless.
Yeah. And not ruthless.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But being relentless, just going, nope, I'm going to keep going. Even when things, because it's so hard when you start.
Yeah.
And when and I think with that as well, being solution focused.
Mm-hmm.
So being relentless and solution focused, because you've got to think about when something doesn't go your way, and I still do it now. You just go, geez, that didn't go right. So instead of wallowing in why it didn't go right, go, what can we do?
Yeah.
And I think the more, so yeah, 100%, and which also links, I suppose, to being positive as well.
Mm-hmm.
But being massively solution focused, really has got me through everything, because you don't focus on the negative. You just focus on, okay, where are we going? And you need to focus on that. So yeah, I think, and probably working ridiculously hard as well.
I mean, that's part of being relentless, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
being relentless, when you say that, it is different to positive, just being positive. I mean, being positive is great, and even being optimistic and all those sorts of things, but relentless is just is a different part of that equation, because that's pragmatic, right? That's just that's the state of mind. But I do like the fact that you also added in there relentless but not ruthless. What because not everyone would have that sort of, and that's obviously something you've thought deeply about. Why? And I get it, but why is that part of your philosophy, not ruthless?
Because I won't get anything at all costs. I won't do anything at all costs. Whereas I know a lot of people do it at all costs, which is, of course, burning people, I won't do that. I like to run an ethical business, and I want to be able to sleep. I want to be really, really comfortable with the decisions I've made.
Yeah.
And I like to, and I'll make tough decisions. I'm very happily will make very tough decisions.
Yeah.
But I won't step on others to get myself up, basically.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, and people can think some people, like you see, think you have to be ruthless to be successful. And it's a misconception, right? I think sometimes people who are a bit more inexperienced, or people who maybe have a different perspective, think that is how you have to get ahead. But it's really not. That doesn't mean you're soft. That doesn't mean that you're easy on people. You can still be ferocious and relentless and a competitor. That's fine, but you can do it the right way, right?
Exactly. You just do it the right way. But, we've had to let people go over the years, either because they're not performing or, whatever it is, don't need the role anymore. And you have to make those decisions. And I know lots of people who can't make those decisions, and their businesses fail on the back of it. And it's like, and I always go, you've always got to have your cap of, I'm a director of this business on. So you've always got to do that. But in making those decisions, do them in follow the process, do it in the right way.
Yeah.
That's, and it is, and it's those kind of things. Whereas, and you have to be relentlessly focused on the success of your business. Yeah. But just
not at any cost.
Not at any cost. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
What about in terms of weaknesses? What would stand out for you as something that when you first started, especially, you sort of struggled with and had to work out how to deal with it?
I think when I first started, I'd come from I'd been like a GM at Woolies and stuff like that. You're not in the weeds. So you're not doing the doing. Yeah. And suddenly you're in your own business and you're doing the doing. So a bit of it was a bit of So one of the first things I did was took myself off on a Photoshop course. It cost me $250, best $250 I ever spent. Yeah. And I learned enough to do enough. I mean, it wasn't good. It looked, half the stuff I did looked terrible, but it was enough to get me going. Yeah. And when I started, that's what I needed to do, because I just went, I have to be picker packer, customer service, website, marketer, finance, blah, blah, blah. I had to do every job. And so part of it is about skilling up. Yeah. So that's absolutely what I had to do at the start. And then luckily my husband said, he was an engineer at Lend-Lease, and he said, he goes, do you want me to give you a hand with with the finances, and I was like, yes, please. I didn't want to do accounting. I still don't want to do it. So he took the finances and ended up running the warehouse. Brilliant operator. So
Right.
he's absolutely the best operator I've ever worked with, because his engineering brain just thinks efficiency and process.
Yeah.
So he is great at that stuff. So one of the things that I learned pretty quickly is bring people in who are better than you at things.
Yeah.
At other things. And so he could take that area. But yeah, I definitely think that certainly when I started, it was that skill gap. And probably one of the other things is I had worked for other companies for such a long time that I was kind of a bit indoctrinated in terms of my thinking.
Yep.
And I remember at Woolies, because when you put stuff on social media, you have to be very considered about it, because it's a big listed company.
Yeah.
And, and you'll have corporate affairs getting involved in various things, all this kind of stuff. And I had to almost shake that thinking off.
Yeah.
With my own business and going, it's different. And it took me a while to shake it. So yeah, those probably two of the first things when I started.
Yeah. Well, that would take time, right? Because like you say, that is off to compliance or off to wherever. I have to get the checks and balances done before anything can go out. But when it's your own, go for it.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Well, exactly. And one of the great things actually about working for big corporates before is I really understand consumer law. So, and all the things that a lot of founders don't. So it actually really irks me when I see it being breached all the time. I'm just like, you can't discount something when you've just launched it.
Okay, right.
Yeah. But I had a really good understanding of just the basics of retail, I suppose, and things like consumer law, which you just really can't get wrong. And, lots of retailers have got it wrong and been fined lots for doing so.
Yeah, okay. So that's held you in good stead.
It's held me in really good stead. And I think just that critical thinking about stuff is really, I can remember when we were at Coles and I was in a Kings of Leon concert, and I could feel my phone. This was years ago now. I could feel my pocket just buzzing. I'm like, what's going on? Anyway, I came out. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and the social media coordinator, Belinda, she's going, Julie, we've got a nightmare. There's a price wrong on the website. And what had happened is, I think we were selling like cases of beer for about $16 or $4 or something. So it was a nightmare. And anyway, it has gone around Twitter, and all the students, we'd end up selling thousands of these things, which we couldn't fulfill.
Right.
And anyway, we had a bit of a disaster. So it was about midnight, and everyone was coming on, getting everyone on the phone and having a bit of a crisis meeting about, okay, what do we do? And it's things like that just hold you in, give you good grounding for other things that you do.
Yeah.
Because anything, I'm absolutely fine with things going wrong. Like if things go wrong, I go, it's okay. There's a solution. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We're not saving lives.
But I need to know what did happen in the end. How did you solve it?
Oh man, it was actually a bit of a nightmare. So what we ended up doing was, first of all, we said we can't fulfill your orders. Well, the students did not like that at all.
No, that wouldn't go down very well at all.
That did not go down well. And then we had some student, there was one guy who went into a bit of a battle with us, and it turned out to be quite funny because he started drawing pictures of my boss, Keith, and the CEO of Coles at the time, Ian, and drawing them sitting drinking beer, and he was just posting it all over social media. So there's a lot of back and forth. And I just remember saying to the team, I was going, you know what, we can't be corporate about this.
Yeah,
we've got to engage with them. So just get on their level and start having a bit of fun with it, and it'll just bring it right down. Which it did. Yeah. So it just took everything down. And what we did is, everyone who ordered, we went and gave them a voucher so they could go and get a 4-pack. Yeah. And we said, look, here you go and get yourself. So it actually ended up okay, but it's one of those moments you look back on and you go, yeah.
Yeah, you can see how that would be a problem.
Yeah, and really understand your audience on that one. Understand your audience. A big corporate message going, we are not going to fulfill your orders. Look at the T's and C's, blah 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 blah. Yeah, just don't do that.
Just escalates things, doesn't it? Yeah. Versus calms it down.
Yeah, exactly.
What about in terms of the decisions you've made along the way? What would you put up there in one of your top decisions that you've made with the business?
Gosh, there's a few. Being massively, this is kind of an ongoing decision, but being massively cash focused,
Yep.
I think was very, very key for us. We really did count the cents in what we did.
Okay.
And that, so we didn't take a dime throughout the whole journey of Flora and Fauna. So we didn't take any money until the end, and when we sold the whole thing. And when you're running a retail business on razor thin margins, it's tough. So we were hugely cash focused, and we looked at cash every single day.
Yeah.
That's, and I think that is absolutely one of the best decisions or best practices, I suppose, of how we ran the business. And we knew there were certain things we knew we always had to pay Aussie Post, because as soon as we didn't, they just wouldn't ship orders. So it's, you've always got to pay Aussie Post, you've always got to pay your team. Like, those are key things, you know. So, and just be all over your cash flow. And I can't stress that to founders enough.
Yeah. Does that, and I just want to do stay on that point for a second, because these days with so many businesses, especially in e-commerce and tech and whatever else it might be, where it's, you know, easy not to focus on cash in terms of you can be unprofitable. Maybe not so much these days, since the sort of tech market's come back in the last 12 months sort of thing, but it is common practice to not make a profit, to try and scale up. And I suspect, I know everyone tries to do the right thing, but when you're raising money from other people and it's not your money, it's probably easier to spend that money and not worry about it. Did you find that having the opposite of that, and it made a difference in terms of we do have to count every cent, every cent here matters?
Massively.
Yeah.
For me, it was my money, effectively.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it. And I always said to my team, in fact, I did it at every business before. So it was the same at Woolies, the same at APG, the same everywhere I went. Maybe it's just because I'm a tight northerner from the UK. but I always used to, I say to everyone, treat this like it's your own money.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If it was your money, would you spend it?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't, don't do it.
Yeah.
So I've always been like that. But I spoke to someone the other week who went in through the crowdsourcing route of getting cash. And they've done exactly what you said. They said that they're basically, the words they used was, it was like winning the lottery. I'm like, and they'd spent the cash.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh man, you know, that's.
It creates different habits and different disciplines in thinking because of where it's come from, right?
Absolutely. And now at Snuggle Hunny, we are exactly the same thinking. Like we want to grow, we want to scale, we want to push, but we want to be smart about it. And we don't want to constrain growth at all.
Yeah. But
we don't just want to throw money out there willy-nilly. Things have got to work for us.
Yeah, and you got to balance that, right? You got to walk before you can run, that sort of stuff. So if that means takes a little bit longer, but you, in your case, keep more of the business and that sort of stuff, like with the first business, I mean, it makes a big difference. Hugely.
And the times where it was tight, it was really tight. But super important to just be really focused on that. And one of the things that I did, I was in, because a big portion of our spend was marketing, and I was on Facebook multiple times a day looking at our ROAS, looking at how is it earning. And for the first few years, I ran the Facebook marketing anyway, which is good because you just, again, you're just all over it.
Yeah.
But you've got to look at every dollar.
Would you do that again in terms of bootstrapping from the start? Would you, if you were to go and do your time again, knowing what you know now, would you have raised money or anything like that, or would you do it exactly how you did it?
Exactly as I did it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have raised money. Yeah, I think all the decisions we made,
it's worth the hard yards.
It's worth the hard yards. Because I'm kind of there going, would it have accelerated us? Perhaps.
Yeah, that's sort of the question, right?
Yeah.
Like, does it matter as well?
Does it matter? But part of us, we had to go a little bit slowly to make sure the decisions we were making were the right ones. And if you go quicker, if you're making any bad decisions, it accelerates that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So I think for us, that was the right decision.
Yeah.
But we did get to the point where we went, but now we do need cash.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every business is going to get to that point at some
Yeah.
time. And speaking of bad decisions, what about mistakes and things that were tough along the way? Was there anything that stands out where you go, oh, that one was the toughest time, or that was particularly difficult?
100%. There's one big one that, and we would probably, Tom and I have actually spoken about this a bit. We'd probably make the same decision again, but possibly. We had to change our website platform.
Yep.
So we were on a platform that just wasn't built for scale. Similar to where we are now. It just wasn't meant for scale, and we couldn't do what we wanted to do. So we moved website platform. And that cost us about, in fact, we were talking about this last night over dinner, that cost us about 4 times what the budget was, which, which it was a $500,000 website, which when you're paying for that out of cash, it's painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
So to your earlier point, we probably could have done with raising capital prior to that. Yeah. To do that. So that might
it went 4 times over. You weren't expecting it to be that much by the sound of it. So you thought you're probably no problem.
Yeah. Exactly. We went, we can do that for 120 grand. Yeah, sure. That's no worries. We can do that out of cash flow. And the challenge with it is when you're down the funnel of doing this, you kind of go, well, we're kind of committed now. And if you're back, it's and then you don't realize, oh God, it's actually going to cost that much. So that was a real challenge for us. And again, it's a stonking website. I mean, it's awesome. And at the time, we had sort of 10,000 products. We needed a website that could cater to that. Yeah. And so, so that was one of the biggest learnings, I think, for us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. That makes sense. I mean, that you've got to do it, like you say, when you get down halfway, you can't turn around and go back. And it's one of those things that is a difference maker in terms of the growth of the business. It's got to be done. So
exactly. We could not do what we did, and we couldn't put the volume through. Like our website before that kept going down, and there are too many problems with it. And to really do what we needed to do, we needed to have that website, and it absolutely allowed, gave us the platform for growth. But it wasn't cheap.
No. What about the best advice you've been given or heard along the way? What are a few things that come to mind?
Oh, there's a couple. So my old boss, Keith, actually from Coles, I remember him saying, he won't remember this, but I remember him saying to me once, Julie, you need to spend at least 20% of your time networking. And at the time I was there going, what? And now I go, the last few years, it's like, I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah. So much of what we have achieved is through partnerships that I've created, or through contacts or networks or any of that sort of stuff. So I always say to people, and I think when you're younger in your career as well, you kind of go, I don't really know what that means. Does that mean having a chat?
Yeah.
What do I chat about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't really understand what that's all on about. But for me, that's been really key. And then something that I always talk to my team about, which I think is super, super key, is keeping it simple.
Yep.
And I talk about, honestly, we talk about, I must say it about 4 times a day. I'm going, we've got to keep it simple. We've got to keep it simple, because if a customer is confused, if we're confused, a customer is going to be confused. So we must keep things, when you're in the retail game, you're selling stuff, you've just got to keep it simple. And the more we make it complicated, the less likely are we going to sell something. So that's one that I'm constantly talking about. Yeah,
okay. I think finance operates on the opposite of that. I think the more complex they make it, the more stuff they end up selling. I think that's the irony of that. It should be the other way. It should be simple.
It should be simple. Yeah, 100%.
All right, I've got final 4 quick questions to run through.
Yes. Okay.
I'll fire away. Who's a business person that inspires you the most?
There's like with every answer with me, there's never one.
You can have multiple answers. We'll accept multiple answers.
I like elements of different people. Yes, so controversially, I think very controversial. Elon Musk is.
I knew Elon Musk was coming as soon as you said that. elements of people. I knew he was going to be the next
yeah.
answer.
Yeah. It's not, we need Elon Musks in the world to push us forward.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
them to drive, you know, love them or loathe him. We need him to drive change, because otherwise we're not going to move forward.
Yeah.
So I like his boldness, and and the fact
100%
that
agree.
it's like, I mean, the guy's going to blooming moon and Mars.
What he can do in terms of execution of strategy and vision is, I don't know if anyone's ever done that before.
No, I agree.
Like, there's plenty of unbelievable entrepreneurs over history, but he would have to be up there in like number one, maybe number two. But like, there's not many that have been able to do what he does, multiple billion-dollar business at the same time. It's mind blowing. Yeah,
he is incredible, and love him or loathe him, but I think he's incredible at what he does.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And then on another, I suppose, it's a very, very dumb dog person, there's a lady, Jane Kay, who runs a business called Bird's Nest, which is out in Cooma. And she runs her business with ethics and kindness and actually deeply customer focused, like incredibly customer focused. She gets her customer. And I just love the way she operates and how that business runs.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a couple.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like it. And different, very different.
Yeah.
What about business books? Do you read business books? And if so, what types are the ones you really love? Yeah,
so I don't read many, but podcasts sometimes. But one I really love is When by Daniel Pink. So kind of based off science. So, and I'm did engineering at uni, so my brain's a bit sciencey. And it's all about the right time of the day to do things.
Okay.
So never have an interview in the afternoon. That's a disaster of a time. Yeah. People just don't want to do that. So
it's true.
yeah. So it's a really fascinating book, because when you read it, you go, oh, that makes sense. And I've changed some of my behavior on the back of the book.
Okay.
I'd always be a night owl, and I still am, but I try and get up early in the morning before the kids get up and do a couple of hours of work before they get up. So really good book.
Interesting. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll have to have a look at that one. I've seen some of his stuff, but I haven't seen that one. So we'll add that to the list. Yeah. What about favorite quotes or on business or leadership, life, that sort of thing? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. Maybe this is a Julie quote. I don't know. Keep it simple. Like, that's my
keep it simple.
That's my mantra. Keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, what's next? What's next for you in the business? Yeah,
gosh. Well, we are head down, bum up at the moment in terms of really getting all these foundations led. So we're in the middle of another website build. I feel like I've done so many website builds now. I'm like, surely this is the last. But we're in the middle of a website build, which is going to go live in a couple of months.
Okay.
So that's exciting for us, because that just gives us so many different opportunities, and we're putting a lot more functionality into the business, and then extending our range as well, and doing a lot more around the sustainability space. So it's a big year for Snuggle Hunny, and I'm enjoying kind of leading the charge on that one and getting into the nuts and bolts again. Yeah.
Well, it sounds really exciting. I can't wait to see how things progress over the next few years, Julie.
Oh, thank you so much. It's awesome.
Thanks for coming on the show. It's been really, really great to hear your story.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.